I made bread. You can't have any. Cranford is a novel by Elizabeth Gaskell that looks into the more farcical sides of Victorian society. The novel's recently found fame in a BBC adaptation. I have not watched it, nor do I care much about it. The novel is one, though, that at best seems misunderstood and at worst seems completely misread. The novel centres around a sleepy little village in which women are by far the predominant sex. Men are rare here and often scorned for being unsuitable to be within the women's environment. In the first place, Cranford is in possession of the Amazons. All the holders of houses above a certain rent are women. If a married couple come to settle in the town, somehow the gentleman disappears. He is either fairly frightened to death by being the only man in the Cranford evening parties, or he is accounted for by being with his regiment, his ship, or closely engaged in business all this week in the great neighbouring commercial town of Drumble. In short, whatever does become of the gentleman, they are not at Cranford. There are some exceptions, however, such as Captain Brown, who quickly seems set to become the main character of whom the plot will mould itself around. Unfortunately, and somewhat unexpectedly, he is instead killed by a train in the following chapter. A criticism frequently laid at the book is that nothing happens in it, and indeed I would argue that that is the whole point. You need only look at the Wikipedia page's decidedly derisive description of the book's plot to quickly discover that people these days don't think much of the novel. And so much of this is because, unlike Oscar Wilde's humour, Elizabeth Gaskell's hasn't aged so gracefully. To fully appreciate the book these days requires quite a bit of background reading and quite a bit of thought as well. The novel is not, in fact, a plot-like jumble of tales that amount to nothing. It is in fact a scathing attack on morals and values of Victorian conservatism. Prior to Cranford, Gaskell penned many novels looking forward, using the urban environment, industrialisation and evolving views on gender and family as their basis. Most of these novels, Mary Barton and North and South amongst them, were generally unpopular with critics. Many said the novels were too busy and too complicated and didn't allow people to escape the hell that is urban life. Rather than become depressed by these comments, Gaskell embraced them. There have been neither births, deaths nor marriages since I was there last. Everybody lived in the same house and wore pretty nearly the same well-preserved, old-fashioned clothes. The novel is deliberately humdrum. It's as if Gaskell was attacking her critics by setting this book at a pace that a snail could outrun. Likewise, the book is filled with excellent absurd skits of the middle-class women running around each other trying to pretend that they've got servants doing the work, whereas in fact they're the ones doing it behind the scenes. When Mrs. Forrester, for instance, gave a party in her baby house of a dwelling, and the little maiden disturbed the ladies on the sofa by request that she might get the tea tray out from underneath, everyone took this novel proceeding as the most natural thing in the world, and talked on about household forms and ceremonies, as if we all believed that our hostess had a regular servants' hall, second table with housekeeper and steward, instead of the one little charity school maiden, whose short, ruddy arms could never have been strong enough to carry the tray upstairs if she had not been assisted in private by her mistress, who now sat in state, pretending not to know what cakes were sent up, though she knew, and we knew that she knew that we knew, and we knew that she knew we knew. She had been busy all the morning making tea bread and sponge cakes. The death of Captain Brown is quite telling as well. The novel was originally serialised in Charles Dickens' Household Words, and makes many mentions of his work. Brown serves to represent the modern world encroaching on this little bubble of days gone by that can be found in Cranford. He reads the Pickwick Papers, a new publication, with great enthusiasm, and is a great fan of the latest transport craze, the steam locomotive. Upon his death, all the ladies of Cranford take every opportunity to label the trains, which are a symbol of the fast-paced modern world, as nasty, and even go so far as to accuse his reading of Dickens' latest works as the reason for his death. Naturally, Dickens did make sure to edit a few mentions of his work out of it. The Cranfordian women's habitual nature borders on obsessional farce. In the opening of Chapter 2, Mrs. Jenkins's new rug is seen as the height of the best news in Cranford. Oh, the busy work Miss Matty and I had in chasing the sunbeams as they fell in an afternoon, right down on the carpet through the blindless window. We spread newspapers over the places and sat down to our work or our books, and lo! In a quarter of an hour the sun had moved and was blazing away on a fresh spot, and down again we went on our knees to alter the position of the newspapers. Likewise, the exact length of conversation adds to the strange bank of societal rules that circumvents their very own purpose. It is the third day. I dare say your mamma has told you, my dear, never to let more than 3 days elapse between receiving a call and returning it, and also that you are never to stay longer than a quarter of an hour. But am I to look at my watch? How am I to find out if a quarter of an hour has passed? You must keep thinking about the time, my dear, and not allow yourself to forget it in conversation. The novel was ultimately a fantastic success, and Gaskell named it as a favourite amongst her own work. Nowadays the book has become a little bit inaccessible because all the cheeky references have been lost slightly to a world that's moved on. It is, however, very easy to read. Interesting is another thing entirely. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I want you to let me know down in the comments if there's a book that you really like that you think is underrepresented. What is it about the novel that you like, and why do you think that it doesn't get the attention it deserves? If you like the video, then please do thumb it, and even better, if you feel super generous and you want to help me get the word out, because it would be a fantastic help, share the video with all your friends, and we'll see if we can get a little party going on here in Cranford. See you on Thursday. Ta for watching. Cranford is a novel by Elizabeth Gaskell that looks more into the sides of and so much of this is because, unlike Oscar Wilde's seemingly timeless humour, Mary Gaskell's, who the fuck is she? To fully appreciate the book these days requires a fair amount of background reading, not to mention... what am I not mentioning?